Alisson Becker triumphantly returned to the Liverpool frame, giving the best in the Champions League match. Fantastic game of Bayern against Inter. Paris Saint-Germain finally showed a game worthy of the grand. To what extent did Laporta's schemes contribute to the catastrophe in Barcelona? We talk about this and much more today. Friends, this is a dose of football and the top 10 hottest news to this hour. Charge your royal likes so we can work without weekends. And check out our second channel, Overdose of Football. A new video was released there 2 hours ago. Well, I wish you a pleasant appetite and a pleasant viewing. The West Ham United and Wolverhampton match started with a thrilling performance and ended in chaos, more reminiscent of a no-rules fight episode. It all started when, after the final whistle, West Ham captain Jared Bowen came up to shake hands with his counterpart, Mario Lemina. It seemed like a normal gesture of sportsmanship, but something went wrong. Lemina, having lost the match, was visibly upset. His anger was fueled by Buna's desire, and the situation quickly got out of control. The players collided and fell on the grass. The other footballers quickly gathered around them, trying to calm the fighting players. But stopping the enraged Lemon turned out to be not so simple. He was not only swinging his fists, but also preparing to pounce on one of the coaching staff members. His partners arrived in time to help and allowed the captain to vent his frustrations once more. With a heavy heart, Lemon was sent to the locker room, where he had to stay alone. But this setback didn't affect Jared Bowen at all. After all, he calmly appeared in the mixed zone and commented on this episode. "I just wanted to shake hands. Losing can be difficult, I get that," said the West Ham captain. But Lemina avoided talking to the press. His coach, Harry O'Neill, explained for him. Mario was upset, but now he's calm. However, Lemina's late calmness will not help him avoid sanctions. After what happened, the judge issued a yellow card to both participants. But the story does not end there. The English press is already discussing Lemon's possible 6-match disqualification. For Captain Wolverhampton, this could be a serious blow. But most likely, he will not be punished to the full extent of the law. He will be suspended from 1 match at most for unsportsmanlike behavior. And the matter will be closed with that. Such is the contrast in the matches of the English Premier League. On one hand, there's support for the injured Michael Antonio. And on the other, fired-up footballers ready to knock each other out. Here's a vivid example of a situation where you can very stupidly lose a key player. Barcelona went into the match against Las Palmas without Dani Olmo, and his absence was immediately felt in the team's play. The element that helped connect the defensive redoubts with the attacking line was missing. Without this important cog, Barcelona's attack looked stale. It's hard to imagine the current main lineup of the team without the Spanish halfback. But there's a chance they'll have to go through the next 6 months without him, if not longer. And this will inevitably lead to a decline in the team's results. So what's happening in the Catalan capital? I think those of you who follow the news closely have already guessed what I'm talking about. Of course, about the problem with player registration. And importantly, about his possible departure from Barcelona. The thing is, when Joan Laporta signed a contract with Dani Olmo, he was absolutely confident in his ability to register the Spaniard. As proof, he included a clause in the agreement that allows Olmo to leave the team for free if he is not included in the tournament applications. In the summer, Barcelona's president devised a plan to register the footballer by sacrificing Andreas Christensen. But this only gave him a 6-month delay to come up with a new idea on how to fit the Spaniard's salary into the tight financial framework. But so far, there are difficulties with this. Laporta is reportedly selling very important person boxes at the renovated Camp Nou, which could help Barcelona return to the 1-to-1 rule and aim for a superstar transfer, according to rumors. However, the agreement is not signed yet, and the clock is ticking. Only 3 weeks remain until the deadline. Laporta has not yet guaranteed Olmo's participation in Barca's matches. So the footballer who was bought for 60 million may leave the team for free. Maybe he won't leave. Nevertheless, such a possibility remains. Just imagine what a blow it would be to Joan Laporta's reputation if something like this happens. That's the distrust he can't avoid in such a situation. Nevertheless, if the president loses such a valuable player for free this winter, sells his place for 20 million, and also starts receiving stable payments after renewing the contract with Nike, then Barcelona will forget about all financial problems for a long time. Florentino Perez has set his sights on one of the strongest players in the world right here and now. The Real Madrid president keeps acquiring new Galacticos. Earlier this year, they signed the strongest young player of the generation. They completed the transfer of Jude Bellingham from Borussia Dortmund for a sum exceeding 100 million euros. This was the second most expensive transfer in the history of Madrid. That same summer, Florentino Perez fulfilled his dream and completed Kylian Mbappe's transfer. Technically, the Frenchman came to Santiago Bernabeu for free, but we all understand perfectly well that a signing bonus of 100 million will also be paid out of the Madrid club's budget. That is, over the last two transfer windows, Florentino Perez has spent a nine-figure sum on the transfer of just one specific footballer. Next summer, he plans to do the same thing. The president of Real wants to sign probably the strongest individual player who is playing on the European continent. According to Spanish media, the leaks pointed to Cole Palmer. I have an objection right away, or rather a claim to this transfer. Let's look at the positions that Palmer is used to playing on the field. The Englishman's main area can be called the right flank of the attack. And who plays in Madrid at this position? Two-star footballers, namely Rodrigo and Kylian Mbappe. Fortunately, Palmer is versatile and can play various positions on the field. His second favorite position is as a forward. The issue is that Real Madrid already has Jude Bellingham, who they acquired just over a year ago. That is, if Madrid gathers its resources and makes a transfer of such a talented player, then this footballer will have to look for a place on the field, which simply does not exist. And that means we'll get a situation similar to what happened after the transfer of Kylian Mbappe. Perez has already tried once in his career to gather the best players on the planet in the Real squad, and such a policy ended up with nothing good. It seemed like President Perez said he wouldn't act like this anymore. However, Spanish media reports suggest he plans to repeat the same mistakes. Real's already having a hard time due to the overabundance of top attacking players. The dressing room atmosphere is worsening with escalating tensions. Palmer's transfer is only possible if they sell Vinicius and his teammate Rodrigo. Then Mbappe can be moved to his favorite left flank, and Palmer can be put on the right position. In this scheme, Jude will play the role of a false nine, and we will get a rollback to the structure that was last season. Only top Brazilian players will have their names changed. But according to the data provided by our source, Palmer is not planning to leave Chelsea in the near future. And if his transfer does happen, it could become historic for all of football. Tottenham is suffering heavily from injuries. I said that there is blame in the drop of results on the stick. The coach is unwilling to adapt to the harsh reality, but there are more complaints about Daniel Levy and the management, as they did not prepare the team properly. No, of course, if it's enough to occupy a place in the middle of the table with a shoehorn, then the current set of players is more than enough. Only here's the thing. London's ambitions, as we know, are to become a full-fledged grandee and to fill the trophy cabinet with a couple of cups to silence the evil tongues. At the very least, make the legendary quotes from "dive to the bottom in a brogue" irrelevant. And to win a trophy in England, besides a handful of luck, you need a deep-class roster and a long-term course under the guidance of one or a few coaches but with similar views. Postecoglou often says that he is used to achieving success, that he was a winner in any club where he worked, but he needs time to transform the team. Time and investment, Tottenham players support Ange. According to insiders, everyone, including those who appear and disappear from the team roster from time to time, enjoy Postecoglou's style and training methods. Christian Romero stated that Ange is the best coach in his career. He also provided a base that clearly became a balm for the fans' ears, but did not please the management. Liverpool and Chelsea continuously strengthen their squads. If they don't achieve success, they strengthen again until they see results. These are the things that can be undermined. You must realize that something is amiss, and ideally they recognize that too. The past few years have always been the same. Players and coaches change, but the same people are always blamed. He also added that he hopes the club will realize who is really responsible for the results. And after the dust settles, the club could have been fighting for the title every year. Daniel Levy probably didn't appreciate such words from Romero, but they should spur him on. And what drastic measures does the president plan to take to help Postecoglou? Dario Sport reports that Tottenham has made a substantial offer to Jonathan David from Lille. I hope that the footballer will agree and move to the Spurs in the summer as a free agent. If these are all the attacking reinforcements for the Londoners for the next two transfer windows, then I have bad news for the club's fans. The public feud between Jose Mourinho and Pep Guardiola continues, with Mourinho unable to let it go. This time, Jose stated that, of course, he respects Pep. But words are one thing, personal relationships are another. He clarified that he doesn't want Manchester City to be excluded from the Premier League. The point is, I want justice. Small teams can sometimes be fined for exceeding the financial fair play limit by €50. When I was working in Rome, I also suffered too much from similar restrictions. I don't think it's fair, and fairness is all I want. Jose is partly correct that financial fair play rules aren't designed to balance teams. And while City and other top clubs are only punished for very serious violations, the middlemen, and not only of the English Championship, can really be punished for some substantial pennies. Well, pennies by the standards of English clubs. After all, the current Wolverhampton has a balance that is even greater than that of Roma. This might be what inclines Jose to return to the Premier League. Moreover, he specifically mentioned that he has unfinished business there. Moreover, his family resides in London. And that's the most compelling reason for moving from the Istanbul hotel, which has become his London home. According to Mark's Turkish department, Wolverhampton wants to replace Harry O'Neill with Mourinho. Nothing surprising. Wolves have a semi-Portuguese squad, thanks to agent Jorge Mendes, who seems to be not just whispering in the management's ear, but has actually taken over the club. Remind me, who is Mourinho's agent? Wolves offer Jose $5 million for breaking his Fenerbahce contract and an immediate Premier League return. And I won't be surprised if the coach accepts the offer, especially considering how often he has been complaining about unfair treatment in Turkey recently. After all, fairness is all the Portuguese wants. Who knows, Pep Guardiola might have stayed at Manchester City if it weren't for the call to rebuild and work in crisis conditions. Honestly, I'm not sure. Besides the fact that the coach loves to overcome difficulties and solve puzzles, he also didn't want his many years of work to be wasted. Pep has grown to love Manchester City during his time at the club. He will now be conducting rescue operations, after which he will go on a long vacation. The coach stated, "I don't want to go to another country and do the same thing I'm doing now. I'm not planning to leave Manchester City in the near future to work in another country doing the same thing I'm doing now. I lack the energy for that. The idea of working elsewhere with all the training sessions is a no-go. Even Guardiolas don't love football enough to do it year after year. Many footballers see how thankless a coach's job is. And I think some of them don't want to become coaches precisely for this reason. These are unreal stresses, colossal expenses in terms of life resources. Imagine you're up to 35. You've been working so hard that you know almost nothing about life beyond the football field. Yes, there are various examples, but I'm talking about real badges. Lucas Moura was only able to find out that his wife is an interesting person because of the injury. Jurgen Klopp did not answer political and other football-related questions simply because he knew nothing but football, as he himself noted. Pep spent years dedicated to his beloved game, neglecting rest. And that's why Manchester City will be the last club in his career, but Guardiola will be remembered for leading the national team. He says working with the national team is different. This strongly suggests that after City he may coach Spain or Brazil's national teams. But Pep also added that during the break he wants to learn French, and with the new language, the desire to live more in the country will appear. So I wouldn't rule out that Pep will go down in history as the man who gave the first Champions League trophy to both the Emirati and Qatari sheikhs. Carlo Ancelotti seems to have no trust in Real Madrid's youth. The Italian rarely fields Enric and Güler, even in matches when the team needs to catch up. According to Releva, this even annoys Florentino Perez Papacarlo. The president is unhappy with two things. First, why does Ancelotti constantly change Bellingham's position and make him play where he is uncomfortable? Secondly, why doesn't the coach trust Güler and Enrique, despite the fact that both youngsters have already proven themselves at a high level? For example, for their national teams. Güler was even the leader of the Turks at the recent Euro. And for some reason, Ancelotti is afraid to give time to the defender. This is likely related to the balance. The coach fears that Orta won't be able to handle the required volumes in pressing and defense, and Ancelotti is already sacrificing Bellingham so that the team doesn't fall back in defense, especially in transition phases. Wow, it seems like he answered both of Florentino Perez's questions right away. Nevertheless, it's not easy to keep Enrique and Gulera on the bench so often, even for a club like Real Madrid. It's no surprise that rumors about likely footballer rentals appear more often than hangovers at a barbecue. But Ancelotti says he won't let the players go in the winter. Endrick stays here, as does Guler. Perhaps they need more game time, but I have no preconceptions about anyone. I just try to field the best footballers for each match, regardless of whether they are 18 or we need to be patient with young players. In any case, a lot will depend on the players themselves and the behavior of their agents. They may demand a transfer from Perez, who understands that the boys need practice to progress. Journalist Florian Plattenberg writes that Guller really likes Bayer Leverkusen. Moreover, there is a possibility that the pharmacists will even arrange a full transfer of the Turk. If Guller had been at Bayer a season ago, he might not have burned any worse than Florian Wirtz. But considering that Xabi Alonso will leave Bayer after the season, I'm not sure that Guller should agree to the transfer. Paris Saint-Germain has disappointed the team's fans several times this Champions League season. Fans have already gotten used to the sterility of the first halves, but usually in the second halves, they manage to heat up the match and the incoming opponent. In fact, it often worked out in the Champions League, only it was disastrously unsuccessful in implementation. You be the judge, what's the problem? Plain bad luck, lack of leaders, or a classic number 9, capable of solving all issues and scoring a goal, regardless of the opponent's goalkeeper's efforts. The de facto sports director, Luis Campos, insisted on buying a forward in the summer, but Nasser Al-Khelaifi chose to trust Luis Enrique, who said he likes playing without forwards. After all, he has Likani and Asensio, and even the actual forward Gonzalo Ramos. This caused a rift between Enrique and Campos. According to Leo Kipp, Campos is upset that his opportunities have been severely cut compared to the Gold era. He presents Enrique with claims for refusing the transfer of the 9th. Journalist Loic Tanzi commented on the publication's info. The media are often accused of creating noise around Paris Saint-Germain, including within the club itself. However, some people working at Camp des Loges who are not Paris Saint-Germain employees are very busy creating such disorders through the left contour. As usual at Paris Saint-Germain, there is a cold war in both the locker room and the offices. Enrique had disputes with the footballers in Camp des Loges. With such a mess, his chances of being fired are high. Both the players and Camp des Loges can whisper about Enrique, suggesting it's time to change the coach. The press has been leaking information about the Spaniard since last season. Another Champions League loss may prompt swift action from management. But yesterday, the Parisians dealt with Red Bull from Salzburg. A confident victory 3-0. Meanwhile, the team again did not use most of its moments. While Grant was in Austria, the Parisian gravediggers got involved in the business again. Thieves tried to rob the house of Luke Hernandez, where his family was at the time. Fortunately, this good boy was there and scared off the villains. Possibly he even left pieces of their fillet parts as a memento. A real hero. Bayer did it again. Leverkusen grabbed a last-minute victory. This time Inter suffered, who conceded in the 90th from Mukiele. Bayer improved again, earning a hard-fought victory. Alonso and Aptekar deserve praise after this game. I would even allow myself to call their performance great. Bayer fielded an experimental lineup, with an experimental scheme, probably for rotation, and still managed to handle the strongest team in Italy. Palacios, the defender, rarely plays in full health, but when he does, he performs like one of the world's top 6 players. The only question is whether this is the effect of Alonso's tactics, or the coach has upgraded the player so much that he now intercepts everything, and also distributes and passes like a mix of Rodri, Pirlo, and Jorginho. To make you understand, Inter, possibly the best in the world, is managed by a sprinter. Seriously, it's harder for the team to play against buses than high lines of opponents. At Radzor, they technically unfold and come out from under any pressure. Remember the league final in the Champions against City, and it would seem Bayer should be afraid of this snake skill. I was definitely expecting a precise match from the Germans in the middle and lower block, like in the first leg of this season against Bavaria. Inzaghi was likely counting on this too, but Bayer came out to press and handled it beautifully. In the end, Inter only had the strength to put out fires in defense. Radzuri simply couldn't keep up with Bayer racing around the field. No shots on goal throughout the match. There were no attempts even in the second half. Inter appeared to aim for a 0-0 draw, but they still should have performed better. It appears to indicate a crisis in Italian football. Or if you will, not a crisis, but a peculiarity. And even maximally tactical and exquisite ball rolling exists only in Calcio. In the whole world, football has become more rough and athletic, and the Italians have serious problems with transitioning from Serie A to the Champions League. Okay, except for the relentlessly aggressive Atalanta and Milan with their personal pressing. The rest, like Inter, are very sick in the Champions League. And against such an ideal buyer, it's doubly painful. Alonso is a genius. Liverpool remains the only club that has not yet lost points in the Champions League. The Scousers minimally overcame Genk and extended their unbeaten run to 18 matches. Frankly, the team's performance was not very convincing. Most likely, its flaws will be analyzed in the future to identify vulnerabilities in the slot system. Not everything worked out in the attack. Girona surprised, at times controlling the game's pace. No one could stop Salah this season. And I certainly didn't expect that he could be eaten by pensioner Daley Blind, who also has heart problems. Yes, Mohamed scored the match's only goal from a penalty, for which he deserves thanks. I'm not sure the Reds could have scored 3 points in any other case. The best player of the match was Andrew Robertson, but in my opinion, the statue should have gone to Alisson. The Brazilian came onto the field for the first time after a serious injury and immediately delivered a perfect performance in all respects. In terms of footwork, everything was top-notch, and on the line, Becker was working wonders. I can imagine what Kelleher's feeling right now, who recently had a tough time in the match against Newcastle United. Slot spoke well about Alisson's game. I feel sorry for Girona. They had a good game plan, but we had a very good goalkeeper. Alisson showed why he is our number one. If the Brazilian continues in the same spirit next season, even Mamardashvili will not see a place in the base. Kelleher will likely leave the team this summer. Darwin Núñez scored, and he's right to celebrate. But in doing so, he killed a couple of good moments in classic style. Slot noted that he deliberately kept him on the field for so long. Yes, Bergwijn scored, gaining confidence. I hope that after this bank, Darwin can at least return to the level of last season. And personally, I'm happy with such a victory of the team. To fight for the title, you need to be able to win even in not the most successful matches, squeezing the maximum out of your moments, and surviving even with a classy game of the opponent. Liverpool once again showed why it is considered a favorite in the fight for the Champions League title and the English Premier League, according to the supercomputer Opta version. That's all for today. Thanks for watching and subscribing. My name is Kirill Cast, and I remind you that a new video has been released on our second channel with a football overdose. Be sure to watch it. Well, that was your daily dose of football. Peace to your house and Johanga friends.